Review session 10, the labor market, also call it the factor market or resource market. Both factors, inputs, or resources are things that go into the production of a good, and labor is one of those inputs. What two things are employers interested in a labor? First is their productivity. They care how productive a worker is. So that's MP, marginal product. What extra product can the labor bring? The other is how much extra money, marginal revenue, can the labor bring to the company as well. Put those two things together to get, you don't add them, but factoring the two together, you get MRP, which is number 2. What is MRP? It is marginal revenue product. So you want to write that down. MRP is marginal revenue product. And I would get this definition. It is the extra money, so marginal revenue is the extra revenue, extra money brought in by an additional labor, in parentheses, or unit of input. So if you're going to hire a new laborer, what in money value is that going to do for your company? So it's extra money brought in by adding a laborer. 3, in a perfectly competitive market, what is the equation for MRP? Well, for any market is, look up here, change in total revenue divided by the change in input, or QI, quantity of input. It can also be, it's not up here, but you want to write the other one down. MRP equals marginal revenue times marginal product, MR times MP. So you want to put that in there as well. I don't have that in the slide, MR times MP. For pure competition, however, there's a third one, and that is MP times P. Well, that makes sense. If MR times MP is MRP, well, we know that in pure competition, marginal revenue and price are the same thing. In any other market, non-competition, price and MR don't equal each other, so MP times P wouldn't work. But in pure competition, MP times P is a third option that you don't have for the other market structures. Finally, what is MRC? Marginal revenue cost, the definition and equation. It is the cost of an additional unit of input. So what does it cost to hire the new labor or to use the new unit of capital? The equation is change in total resource costs divided by the change in resource quantity, or QI, quantity of input. In perfect competition, number 5, MRC equals the wage. Let me look here at the chart. I didn't reproduce it on the slide. You have it in front of you. They give you the input, how many laborers. Maybe draw a little stick figure, because in picture that represents the workers. Total product is the amount that all the workers make put together. Marginal product, which isn't given to you, is the extra product a new worker brings you. So obviously, let's fill this in. Marginal product, 0 for 0 workers. That's obvious. Then you went, put your pen on the, from, like actually labor input, go from 0 to 1. We went from 0 to 1, we got 0 to 25 total product. So that would mean that we got 25 extra from the time before. So write in 25 under marginal product. Then put your pen from 1 to 2 workers. We went from 25 to 45. What's your marginal product? 20. It's the extra that you got from the second worker. The marginal product of the third worker is 15. The fourth is 10. Fifth is 5. Put a star by the sixth worker. Now we're going into the negative. Now it's -5. We should stop hiring because now we're actually losing product. Seventh worker is -10. So you filled in that. Marginal revenue, well, it's pure competition. If you look up where it says example, price of product is 50 cents. So we know that MR has to be 50 cents. Price and MR are the same thing. If this was your non-perfect competition, they would give you an MR column and a price column. Okay, so then it's 0.5 all the way down the line, your marginal revenue. So your marginal revenue product, the hard way of getting this, do the change in total revenue. If you don't have a column for total revenue, you could calculate it by saying the price times the total product. So one labor input, be 25 is the total product, times the 50 cents to get your total revenue, and then calculate the change. But that's complicated. Here you can do MR times MP, which is MP times P in pure competition. So you do MR, which is always going to be 0.5 for the first worker, 0.5 times the marginal product, which is 25, and you end up with 12.5. So hit pause and do these calculations for MRP. Okay, what you should have gotten for the second worker is 10, the third is 7.5, the fourth is 5, the fifth is 2.5, the sixth is negative 2.5, and the 7 is negative 5. Finally, the MRC equals the wage in pure competition. So this is the wage. It's going to be $7.50 for all of them. Okay, we then look at the rule. Well, what should we hire? Well, the rule for this is MRP equals MRC for the quantity. It should sound kind of familiar if you think about our MR equals MC in the product market. When the factor market is MRP has to equal MRC. That's the rule. In this case, it says how many workers should be added. Well, it would be 3 workers. And the reason that it is 3 is because at that point you're looking for the last 2 columns to equal each other. MRP equals MRC. Point to those 2 columns. You take your finger on down the line, bam, it happens at the 3rd worker. Nowhere else does that happen. If for some reason you found them equaling each other somewhere else down the road, you could have either answer. It would be correct. But let's say they didn't equal. Let's say there was no 7.5 equals 7.5. Let's say that your MRP of the point to it 3rd worker was, let's say, 7. And then, so write that in next to it in parentheses. For the 4th worker, let's say it was 8. So if we look, it's 7.5 is equidistant between 7 and 8. If it's the 3rd worker, 7 is the MRP, the marginal revenue cost would be 7.5. We don't want that because our MRP, you don't want it to be lower than your cost, or it's pointless to hire the worker. Go one down. If the 8 MRP is greater than the MRC 7.5, that's the one you're going to go with because you don't want it to be in the negative. So that's really important. If wages were to increase by $10, what would the new choice be? Well, MRC, instead of going 7.5 all the way down, would be 10 all the way down. So where does MRP equal 10? At the 2nd worker. So you would end up doing it at the 2nd worker. Finally, workers. Are they fixed or variable costs? They are variable. A fixed cost would be like to rent, a building or something. But it's always the same. But for variable, it changes. So your labor costs depend on how many laborers you have and how often that they work. Let's look at